All right, welcome. We got a brand new show here. Me and of course my co-host Chris Keebzak up there.
How you doing?
Welcome to Fragments and Sound Bites. Kind of like a new show that we designed here to give you quick updates in the world of music, talk about a few different segments of things. And today's episode is our debut. So please, by all means, leave us some comments, give us some ideas for future episodes. Tell us what went well, what didn't go wrong, what you'd like to see in this episode, and we will tweak it from there. So without further ado, we are going to bring up our first subject of the day, which is yesterday. Obviously, the big list came out with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions for the class of 2024, and some very well deserved people on this list. And we'll also talk about some of the people that we feel that shouldn't be included. But what was your take overall, Chris?
Well, when the nominees first got announced, there was obviously some that I was confused by, but that's the age-old debate now is who deserves to be in and who doesn't. So when I see names like Mary J. Blige or Cher, or even to a degree Oasis, you sort of think, do they deserve to be in as quickly as they were when so many bands are being snubbed? But now we know what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is. We take it for what it is. So any year that these come out, I start thinking that if it's going to be a music hall of fame, which is clearly what it is, and let it be that, and that's fine, and I take it for what it is. So um not too many artists that I'm surprised. The only one that I think probably deserved to get in based on how big he was when I was a kid, was Lenny Kravitz. And I thought his style of music back in the late 90s and early 2000s, especially like when Are You Gonna Go Your Way came out, um, it was almost like the only old school style rock music that was going on while in between on TRL, in between Britney Spears and Eminem videos. So Lenny Kravitz, I think, had a much bigger impact on rock for people my age than people give him credit for. So I was a little surprised that he wasn't the ones that got in. Cher, it's obvious. Madonna level, Michael Jackson level, clearly should be in there. And Ozzy, I'm a big fan of people being getting in their their solo outputs, because I think people give people like Ozzy and Alice Cooper not enough credit for not just being Black Sabbath, not just being the first 4 or 5 Alice records, as the original band. So really cool to see Ozzy in there, because for me, Ozzy's catalog as a whole means more to me than Sabbath's. I'm a huge, huge, huge Sabbath fan, but when I was growing up, I was much more into the metal, the faster type 80s and 90s metal that Ozzy was producing, as much as I loved Sabbath. But so his solo career definitely plays more of a role in my upbringing musically than Sabbath did. Um, but yeah, other than that, I'm not too surprised. Dave Matthews getting in is a little weird, and I'm excited to hear your reaction on some of these, like Mary J. Blige and Dave Matthews, and even Oasis. Um, were you surprised by anybody on this list when the nominees got announced?
I didn't realize Cool and the Gang haven't made it in yet. That was a surprise.
That's a good point. I was surprised by that too.
Considering how many other bands that got snubbed, I didn't realize that they weren't in because I don't really follow it too closely. And then, if we ever one of these days we're going to be doing our own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the website, and it's going to be a totally different criteria. We're not going to have people that don't have some kind of rock in their catalog. It's going to be a
Well,
Rock Hall of Fame.
where do you draw the line with that
Well,
though?
that's what we
Even
do.
Madonna and Michael Jackson have rock in their catalog.
They won't be in it. They won't be in it.
Exactly. So there'd have to be a way to really
Right. And that's
design it
something
to,
that the judges will have to discuss.
yeah, yeah.
So that's all. It's just a matter of Are they rock enough to be in our Hall of Fame? Have they done enough throughout their career? Have they influenced enough people? La 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 la, and then we'll go from there. So that's a whole discussion for another show, which we can do down the road. But
Yeah, very
get,
interesting though.
getting back to this list here, glad to see Foreigner finally got in because that's going to pave the
Yeah.
way for Styx and REO. I think eventually those two bands have had healthy catalogs for 10 plus years, always platinum albums in a row, tons of top 40 hits. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in there, Styx and REO. So
And
that
speaking of
that's
Sticks and REO and even Foreigner, none of those bands really had a moment where they were like playing clubs and stuff like the hair metal thing was, right? I mean, they
right.
always sort of drew at least 5, 6,000 people at a show, right? Even at their lowest.
Yeah. I mean, even in the
How do bands like that get snubbed like this?
even well, Foreigner had that whole thing with Wenner, so that was how that all came into play. That if he was still in charge, there's no way they would have been nominated or put in
Right,
the hall. So glad he's out. He deserved to be gone. So long. See ya. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
right.
Ozzy, I agree. His from the beginning of his solo career all the way up to like to me, No More Tears is kind of where everything started to fall apart for him. But still, to have that solid 10-year run right there of just platinum album after platinum album, selling all those copies, phenomenal career, and he's still putting out decent material today. You can look back at these new albums. Yeah, they're not typical Ozzy albums in the way that those earlier albums were, but he's still driving the point home. He's still sounding really good as a singer, and those albums are actually selling pretty good if you look at it. Obviously, music today is a whole different bird the way the albums chart. And that's another thing too. Obviously some of his other albums, earlier ones, didn't really get that high on the charts, sadly enough, because the music was done different back then for his terms of album sales and how now it's by album sales, but in the old days it used to go by actually a chart. They had some kind of formula to figure out, how it all went down. So, whole different, two different generations now, really. But glad to see Ozzy's in. Oasis, I feel, don't deserve to be in because they really didn't do a lot. They had one or two good albums, and the rest is kind of jizz, as Ted would say. Nothing to
Yeah.
write home about from them. Everybody called them the second coming of the Beatles, but they really faded away quickly. I don't think they could
I,
even sell out an arena these days, even if they did get back together.
Oasis was the most boring concert I've ever seen in my life.
So yeah, so Cher, I definitely feel should definitely be in. Dave Matthews, he's one of those bands you either love or you don't like, and I don't like. So long, Dave. Luckily, you made it in. You won't be in our Hall of Fame. So, just to give you a rough idea of how I'm going to be running the Hall of Fame, and obviously I'm going to have input, but it's not just all my decision. But Dave Matthews, I don't know. He just doesn't, like you said, he just doesn't do anything for me. Might be a great
Well,
player. His music is good, but he just isn't the type of music that I would go to or sit down and try to get into, unfortunately. So yeah, the Rock Hall. I thought about this when we brought it up. Give me two bands you feel that should be in the Rock Hall that aren't, and just give me a little bit of background on why you think they should be in there.
okay. Well, the first band that I think should be in no matter what, especially putting in everything that isn't considered rock or metal. Iron Maiden 100%. I mean, I probably should have picked a band of lesser agreements, but that's my next one. But for Maiden, just really took the Kiss and Alice Cooper and Bowie-esque stuff to a whole new level. Heavier, faster music. Obviously, that the new wave of British heavy metal was just a shock to America, and let alone, you know, everywhere. It's just Maiden. Eddie, the whole mascot thing that started with them was a real, I think, a real adrenaline shot to music. Just the stage show, the craziness, the music, the 12-minute songs that don't really get boring, the writing, the stage presence. Maiden should have been in long, long time ago.
All right, so yeah, I totally agree with you on Iron Maiden. That was one of my choices, so we think alike in that respect, which is good. Iron Maiden, how they cannot be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a travesty. You know, Bruce Dickinson obviously isn't the original singer, but man, did he take that band to another entire different level than you could have ever imagined. Nothing against Diano, but you know, Maiden first two albums are decent. Don't get me wrong, but Bruce just took them to a whole nother level. Five consecutive platinum albums, three gold. Yeah, this band has definitely influenced so many bands over the years. A lot of these '90s bands, believe it or not, they are a big influence on a lot of them, and
Definitely.
it's just a shame that no one recognizes these guys. You know, in Rock Hall of Fame, you think, okay, well, that's just in the U.S. You can only imagine they sell tons of records overseas in other countries. So, you know, five consecutive platinum in the U.S. alone is something amazing. So you and then you go back and look at all their other record sales across the continent and the globe, and it's like, wow, these guys definitely deserve to be in, no doubt about it.
And you know what else is amazing about Maiden? Did you go see them in 2019 at the arena?
Hmm.
That show, did that the energy, especially the Kiss end of the road thing was like at the same venue maybe 6, 7 months later, and the difference of the energy by the crowd before and after the set was insane. Maiden getting snubbed, people don't realize how big those shows are. To come close to selling out the arena as a metal band like Maiden is insane. The only other band that can do it like that in that genre is Metallica.
Right.
And the energy of the crowd after, let alone before, but after, everyone screaming and shouting and chanting Maiden still really shows that that band has an everlasting influence on heavy music.
Yep. That's why
And
we. Yeah.
absolutely,
All right.
that's a big snub from the Hall of Fame.
So hopefully they'll rectify that next year. All right. So what do you got for your second band there?
All right, second one, I have uh, the Bad Brains, one of my favorite punk and hardcore bands. Um, Definitely started a genre. Um, all African American players in the late 70s, all the way through the 80s and 90s, playing hardcore punk music in New York. Came up around the time of the Cro-Mags and bands of the like, and definitely is a style of music that even people who don't listen to punk or hardcore would really benefit from listening to. Um, Very anti-establishment, very anti-government, but brings this reggae like piece. And in their later albums, they pretty much became a reggae band. And the singer HR has a very rare brain condition that he does these little shows and stuff, and you see him in the media, but he's pretty much inactive. The rest of the band do random benefits and stuff with random people like Randy Blythe from Lamb of God singing. But a lot of influence on Record Store Day, which I went and picked up. I guess I should have brought the copy over here with me, but there's a new band with Dave Grohl, Scott Ian, and Charlie Benanti, and they do The Regulators by the Bad Brains, and right on the back of the record it says "Listen to Bad Brains." Bad Brains is a band that has always slept on, and the influence that that band brings to bands that you wouldn't even believe that you listen to. I mean, I seen an interview with the guitar player for Carrie Underwood, and they were asked what their favorite band was, and said Bad Brains. Bad Brains started a revolution that only the underground really understands, but they're starting to get their due diligence. But Bad Brains definitely should be in the Hall of Fame, and anyone who listens to punk and hardcore would probably agree with me there.
All right. Very good. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the band, but I've heard of them obviously, and I've definitely seen what you said. There's a lot of bands out there that cite them as an influence for sure. The later, a lot of the bands that came out like later on in the late '80s, early '90s, especially the ones that have that punk element to them.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so my choice is a no-brainer. You know, why these guys aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is stranger than Maiden, really, because of how globally successful these guys have become, and that's none other than Germans own the Scorpions.
Ah, yes.
If they are, how they are snubbed at this point is just amazing. You know, they pretty much had good, decent lineups. I mean, they've had a few changes, but for the good majority of time, they've had it where the main band was in the same guys for a chunk of time. Wasn't like they were constantly changing members like some bands. So, Scorpions, you know, you look back on theirs, 5 consecutive platinum albums. Once again, another band that has that. 1 gold, 3 in the top 10, and this was before um, the way the record sales are now, which makes it even better. Looks better on the resume. 2 top 40 hits only, but obviously those songs are huge. And Wind of Change and Rock You Like a Hurricane. And yeah, just a phenomenal band. They've had a long history, been around for what, 5+ decades now. Just
Yeah.
just just simply amazing that they've been around for that long, and they just got off of or they're pretty much almost done, I think, with the residency in Vegas right now. And yeah, let's just hope they make it out back on the road here in the U.S. For one more good tour for the road here, sometime before they end up calling it quits or whatever.
Well, what's interesting about the Scorpions, I mean, you mentioned 5 decades. It's almost like a different band. That early years, the
Mm,
70s version of Scorpions, and then everything preceded it. Even or everything that came after it. Even bands like Aerosmith and Kiss, who have pretty distinct catalog changes throughout the 80s and 90s, bands that started in the 70s. Um, Scorpions is way different than that. It's like two different bands. That's what's so great about the Scorpions catalog is like it's almost different styles of music.
hmm
You know, I felt Aerosmith and stuff and what they did in the 80s wasn't as far away from their original sound, but the Scorpions really managed to change their sound enough to appeal to a whole new audience. And now both in 2024, both of those catalogs combine, and we just get an amazing 50-year discography from the Scorpions. Totally should be in the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame.
Yeah. So there's 2 bands we just discussed right there. So don't forget to leave your bands you feel that should be in the comments there. Be good to see them and see what your ideas behind that are. And so that's our first segment there. And now we're going to go into what do you got for us next that you want to discuss?
Well, couple things. So a few weeks ago, D. Snyder was interviewed about Twisted Sister, if they would ever tour again. And for the past few years, when that got brought up, D pretty much swiftly said it's not happening.
Hmm
But in the recent interview, he stated, and I'm sure you read this, he stated that, um, you know, if the money's right and he's surprised at what these offers are, that it very well could happen. Pretty much saying like we might bite the bullet and do this. What with a bit, I feel a situation like that is much different than what Motley did, what Kiss did, what all these bands do. At least D's saying, like, look, an important member of the band died. We're writing this off, and even when he was still alive, the band didn't over tour. They didn't. I think doing something like that for Twisted Sister is actually a decent call for the fans and good. They get a good payday out of it as they should. What do you feel on bands like that reuniting compared to bands like The Crew or even what's just happened with Slayer and that whole debacle? How Kerry King puts out a new songs, releases that he's going to have a new record, releases tour dates, and then all of a sudden Slayer is playing 2 festivals. I mean, what do you feel about that?
Well, I think the Motley Crue thing was a big joke. You know,
Yeah.
that they set that all up just to do what they ended up doing, and that's a
Yeah.
shame, because the whole Mick Mars situation and the way everything went down with Motley Crue there, that's just not the way you treat a guy that you've been with somebody in a band with all that time. If there's a fallout or okay, his skills are diminishing, so we got to get rid of him. There's a better way to go about it. Let's just be honest with the fans. Don't sugarcoat things and hide things and
Yeah.
and then start talking bad about the guy, the second things are out in the open. I think Nikki Six is a big mouth, and I don't care. He can do whatever he wants here, but he says what he feels like saying, and I'm just not a fan of him. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean, at least Vince usually takes the high road. You don't hear Vince say much in the press at all. So I mean,
No,
I
he
like the way
keeps his mouth
Vince is
shut.
handling things. You know, as much as we know about his past other stuff that goes on, at
Yeah.
least Vince keeps his mouth shut to the press. You know, Nicky is just whatever he feels like at the moment. He's just gonna, you know, he's all over the place on some of his stuff that he talks about. You know, and even Tommy to an extent, you don't hear much about either. You know, it seems like everything that's been coming out of the Motley Crue camp these days is coming right from Nicky, you know, and you know, I mean, this whole Mick Mars thing, it really kind of blew up in their face once all the things were brought to the attention about the, you know, the all the different stuff they were pulling on stage and all that stuff. And, you know, that's a whole nother episode, obviously. But you know, but
I'm okay with what they did bringing in John 5. It just seems like they did it in the wrong way. I feel like
wrong way. Yeah.
it felt like McMars was cattle being led to the stage to stand there and play. And I'm not okay with bands doing this to these guys, like what's going on with Jack Russell. I'm not okay with this. I think it's ridiculous. I think why? And I'm cool with it being someone we knew, like John 5 coming into Motley. But what Motley did was just obviously just for themselves and trying to protect their own asses.
Mhm.
But with the Twisted Sister thing, though, I mean, would you be interested in a Twisted Sister reunion at this point?
The problem you're going to have though is that even if they do some type of tour, they don't like to tour long periods of time. If you ever notice, even near the last 5, 6 years of their being together out on the road, they even used to tell everybody, "Well, we're going to do 10 dates this year. Let us know what cities you want us to play in," and then they would narrow it down and just go with, you know, whatever offers they were given, obviously, and that kind of stuff. So fortunately, I was able to see them once in Pennsylvania. That would be the last time I seen him. I believe it was 2011 or 12, somewhere in that range. So glad I got to see him one more time. Obviously, we both saw him in Buffalo downtown when they played in front of City Hall, which was cool.
Right,
Um,
which was 19 years ago.
wow.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, I think if they're gonna do get back together, I'd like to see it be, you know, at least a good amount of dates. I'm not saying go out and kill yourself with a schedule that's going to make it hard on the guys or anything like that. But I hope they play enough shows where they try to get as close to all the, even the B markets as much as they can to help,
Right.
so
Yeah.
everybody gets to see them one more time. And they did not play that last tour that they did when they announced that they were going to do a bunch of dates and then said it was going to be the final, like right in the middle of it. It kind of sucked because
It
at
was
that
like
point,
all festivals.
yeah, and you didn't really get much of a chance to make any plans to get to catch them one last time, because by the time you found that out, there wasn't a lot of time left to try to, you know, if you're going out of town, obviously it's hard. You got to line up time off from work, this, that, and everything else, and other stuff
Well,
going on. You know, there was just so much. If they do something like this, they do get back together. Hopefully they'll announce it like in a spring type situation, or at least give a couple, like 4 or 5 months beforehand. You know, once they sign the actual agreement that they're going to go back out on tour, so that way everybody can make the plans, and the people who really want to see them can get a chance to do so. That's all.
right. Well, when AJ died, it seemed like they really that was sort of the end. You could tell they wanted to fulfill their agreement that they had. They wanted to play one more time for the fans, and I think they were just sort of trying to rush it over. And I understand that. They were for the longest time, they were one of the last bigger bands from that era with all original members,
Yeah, that's true.
which we don't see a lot anymore. So,
All right, and you brought up Twisted Sister, so what I'm going to do is bring up today we had a couple tours announced. I'm going to talk about them real fast. And the big one was Megadeth, Destroy All Enemies. Megadeth with special guest Mudvayne and All That Remains. Not coming anywhere near the Great Buffalo area, unfortunately. closest you'll be able to see them from here probably would be Pittsburgh at Stage AE, September 18th. The next closest show would be Albany at MVP Arena on September 10th. So
Well, Pittsburgh's a good that's a great venue, Stage AE. I love it there. Seen two shows there, so that'd be great to be able to catch them. Are you planning on catching a gig or no?
I don't know. We'll see. So that's Megadeth and Mudvayne. Those are the two closest to Buffalo. To see more, go to the Megadeth website, and it has all the information about tickets and everything on there. And another tour that was announced today was the Asia, the original band Asia, coming back out this summer with only one original member, Jeffrey Downs, the keyboardist, who helped write a lot of the bigger songs of the band. Unfortunately, Carl Palmer has other obligations, so or else he would be there. He gave his blessing to Jeff Downs. So they got another drummer, and I guess they had some guys playing with them last year. They're just gonna continue on with that lineup. Um, you know, it's good to see the band trying to carry on and still keep the music alive. But at what point do you say, eventually it's going to have to end at some point? I'm kind of surprised they didn't get John Payne back, who was the original, it was the first time when Wetton left that they replaced. He was the first one to actually record on an album. Obviously, Greg Lake took over for a couple shows in Japan back in 83 for the Alpha tour, but um, Payne came in like I believe it was 90 91. I believe he recorded that album with them, Aqua. And yeah, it would have been great to see Payne get back out there with them, and because at least people are familiar. And Payne's had a lot of the albums in the the Asia albums with John Payne singing. It's got some really good stuff hiding on there. A lot of people aren't too familiar with it because unfortunately they didn't really do nothing in the U.S., but they did sell some overseas. But it would have been good to see Payne come back and sing with them. But obviously they went in a different direction. Because probably, I don't know, everybody has their own ways and what they want to do here. So they're coming to Fallsview OLG stage July 4th. Just to give you a quick rundown, that date obviously sticks out pretty good there, being the 4th of July here in the States.
Yep.
And so that's what I got for the upcoming shows. Me and Chris are going to do an actual summer concert guide episode for everybody, probably in about a month, to kind of let you know where all the shows are within driving distance and, in the Buffalo area, Toronto. We'll give you all the dates and give you the rundown on all that stuff so you can
Yep.
make your plans. And do you have any other things for us before we go, Chris?
No, not really. No, but as far as the summer guide goes, yeah, looking forward to really dissecting the concert schedule and maybe even a couple of the bigger touring packages that aren't going to hit the area, like you said, Toronto, maybe even closer areas like Cleveland or Pittsburgh, if the show's big enough and we would want to see it enough. Try to be able to let people know where they can make these shows. So yeah, that'd be great. No, other than that, I think we're all pretty much caught up and it's pretty good first show. And we look forward to bringing more information and segments to this as we sort of swim around and figure out what we're doing here.
That's a good way to say it. Okay,
Yeah.
so that will end this episode of Fragments and Sound Bites. Like I said, leave your comments and suggestions. One thing we're going to try to do each episode, we just wanted to touch base on this one here, but we're going to do kind of almost like a Where Are They Now or Remember This Band segment, where we're going to pull a band out that got a lot of airplay on the radio, but never really had that follow up that was big, or they kind of fell off the face of the earth after that album. So we're going to try to bring up some of these type bands that we feel that were the best of the batch that unfortunately have just withered away and disappeared our great ears, because unless you have the albums now, you don't hear them anymore. So um, we're going to do
Yeah.
something like that.
And we were talking about we're not really going to limit the genre of music. We're sort of going to go wherever our brains takes us as far as what style of music, but it'll fall under the rock and heavier style, but it's going to be nice to sort of dissect some different genres that come underneath the rock umbrella.
All right, sounds good. All right, folks, signing off.
Sounds good. Until next time.